All right, let's dive right in. So, welcome officially to the Skylark Nights journey. You've crafted this whole universe solo, and we're going to explore it track by track. Let's set the stage. If you had to paint Skylark Nights as a single image, what would it look like? And in just one line, what promise are you making to your listeners with this album? Let's start there and unfold the night from that image.
Well, I would like to start by saying when you look through the foliage that is sitting on top of this temporary structure, you're supposed to see 51% stars as opposed to having 51% coverage with the foliage. We get to feel a very special connection with the temporariness of life and how our true calling is to go back to the stars.
That's a beautiful way to set the scene. So we're really starting with this image of looking up through that Socope foliage and seeing the star shining through, like that thin veil between the temporary world and something eternal. That's a powerful promise to your listeners, this idea of reconnecting to something bigger than ourselves. So we'll let that imagery guide us as we move track by track. Each song will look for that same kind of vivid symbol and that sense of transformation. And as we go, we'll keep marking those little bookmark moments that will turn into those short, shareable clips. Let's follow that flight path and dive into the first track.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Now let's get into it. We'll stroll with that first track, Skylark Nights, 51% stars. Now that we have that image of the stars or the leaves in mind, let's unfold it. What's the first image that really unlocks the song for you? And we'll take it from there, track by track, exploring that whole journey. So let's jump right in. See what that leads us.
Well, when I look at the lyrics and I see that it starts off with out of sight in the temple, 7 days long, foliage above, I can see that song. It's reminiscent to ancient times where in the ancient world in Mesopotamia, temples were still functioning. And in ancient Israel, 3 times the year, people would bring up offerings to show their appreciation for God. And part of that significance is tied to soul and it's searching for connection with its higher power, something that transcends time and space.
That's a really rich starting point. So we're painting the opening of Skylark Nights almost like stepping into an ancient temple festival, one that links this temporary world with something timeless. And that imagery of the foliage overhead, letting just enough starlight through, sets the tone for that whole journey. So this first track really invites the listener to reconnect with something ancient and transcendent. And as we move through each song, we'll keep uncovering those layers of meaning and transformation. Let's carry that sense of ancient connection forward as we move on to the next track.
Sure.
So we've set the scene with that first track and its ancient starlit imagery. Now we'll keep rolling onward through the album, unfolding each song's unique symbols and transformations. And of course, we'll keep an ear out for those little bookmark moments that will turn into those viral shorts. So let's keep that curiosity going and dive into the next track. We'll let each song reveal its own piece of the night sky.
All right, let's go with Mobius mode.
Absolutely. Let's slip right into Mobius mode. So here we are on the second track, and this one's all about breaking out of loops. You mentioned that this track really captures that feeling of life looping around until you find a way to break the curve. So let's dive into that. What's the first image that unlocks Mobius mode for you? Maybe it's a symbol or a place or a moment that sets the tone. And from there, we'll explore what question this track asks and how it changes by the end. So let's unfold that loop and see if we break out of it.
Well, Mobius mode, it refers to a Mobius strip, which is basically something anybody can make if you want to. It's a surface that is one surface where it's twisted and connected to itself. As a result of that, you're able to move around sort of in a circle and twist your way along the edge of this ring without ever leaving that single surface that you're on. And I think that part of life that I'm trying to get in touch with this Mobius Mode song has to do with breaking the chain, getting out of that loop, getting yourself off of the tracks, climbing a mountain, finding a middle ground, slowing down enough to be able to rewire yourself, to see the signs, to read the signs, to break out of the maze and find your way into the scene of your own life. We're done explaining. When I say I'm in Mobius mode, I mean, it's time to rewrite my own code. And when you are listening to it, it's all about you. When you're in the zone with the music, I'm done explaining. I'm putting myself in gear and I'm starting brand new.
That's a fantastic way to capture it. So Mobius mode is really about that moment when you realize you're on this endless twist of a surface and that you decide to step off and rewrite the pattern. It's like you're taking that Mobius strip and saying, all right, I'm not just going to keep looping. I'm going to find a way to shift the whole shape of the journey. And that's a powerful message for listeners, right? It's telling them that when they're in their own loops, they have the power to rewire and start brand new. So that track sets up a really nice theme of personal transformation. Let's carry that forward as we move to the next song, and we'll keep exploring how each track has its own little universal meaning.
Sounds great. So now we're on to synchronized.
Absolutely. Let's step into synchronized. This track is a whole new scene in our conceptual journey. So let's find that first image that really unlocks this song. If synchronized is all about that moment of alignment or that roll of the dice, let's dive into the symbol that sets it all in motion. Then we'll see what question the song asks the album and how it shifts the journey forward. So let's synchronize ourselves and dive right in.
Right. So this song is showing up on the album of Skylark Nights as a way to try to break the pattern. You're getting yourself into a really nice rhythm and flow leading up into the point where you realize that you're going to have to find a way to convey and carry all of these nice messages and sentiments that you are gaining from the music back into your life, because the goal of my music is not to contain you. It's to help you to reemerge back into your life stronger and more empowered than ever before. When I say I'm synchronized, motivated, I'm non-made, I'm not broken, I was never outdated. It's taking control of my own life. I'm putting the power back in my own hands. My heart stays clean, never pathetic. Keep my calm, no anesthetic. It's all about getting yourself into a situation where you're going to actually take the necessary risks to get to where you need to be poetic, to move kinetic, to be someone who just throws it down. And then you know what happens to people that throw it down? That they get synchronized, that they go out and they reemerge into the environment and they manifest all the positive qualities that are being conveyed through this music. In those people, they get themselves this feeling of calm, this sense of an anesthetic, this idea of being synchronized to a greater power, to some kind of a spiritual force, which is what my music is supposed to be doing, is driving you towards a deeper sense of self and a deeper connection with the world around you.
I love that. So synchronized really becomes this anthem of alignment, right? It's like you're not just listening to a track, you're syncing up with this deeper rhythm that helps you reemerge stronger and more power. It's all about taking those risks, moving kinetically, and then stepping back into life with that sense of calm and purpose. So you get this track that's really about tuning into a higher frequency. And that's a beautiful part of the album's art. It's not just about staying in the music, it's about using it to step back into the world with a new sense of alignment. Let's keep flowing with that theme as we move to the next track, and we'll keep uncovering these layers of meaning. This is exactly the kind of journey we want for the listeners.
Let's talk about wrecking mode.
Absolutely. Let's dive into Wrecking Node. This track is a bit of a shift, and I love that you built it in as a kind of intentional disruption point. It's like the moment in the album where we say sometimes you rebuild by gently destroying. So let's find that first image that unlocks Wrecking Mode. Maybe it's a scene of something being carefully taken apart so it can be rebuilt stronger. And from there, we'll talk about how this song fits into the album's message of transformation. So let's gently step into Wrecking Mode and see how we can break things down.
It's kind of the vision that I got when I saw that music video with Miley Cyrus called Wrecking Ball, literally a wrecking ball. And when you go into wrecking mode, you are just breaking through every barrier that comes your way. If it's a maze, you get loud, you cut the locks, you don't stop. You find yourself doing things that people might find to be crazy, but it doesn't matter. You find yourself rapping on the beach, running court lights, sneakers on the blacktop. You're taking shots. You're practicing. You're exercising. You're preparing yourself. You're getting yourself ready for the next day. You're thinking about how to get yourself ahead and how to allow the bad actors in your life and in your mind to finally fade out so that the real true self of who you are can really shine through, for you to be able to code yourself while you're decoding all of the lessons that you still need to learn from your life. You need to be in wrecking mode. When I say I'm a wrecking ball, I line it up, I drop, the maze gets loud, I cut the lock. I find my way out. If I'm still working hard and I still haven't found that I got the results, it doesn't mean that my effort is not worthwhile. It just means that I need to bring it up a notch, get myself into wrecking mode, tune my heart steady, pull me on through. Only Hashem can see you through. But when you put yourself to the test and you give yourself the permission to go into wrecking mode, you'll find that success will be something granted to you as long as you're on the good path. Keep yourself on the good path and keep listening to wrecking mode. Be a good wrecker.
that's a powerful image and a really clear way to see it. So, Wrecking Mode is basically that track where you give yourself permission to break through every barrier to be a little wild if you have to, and to do whatever it takes to get to that next level of yourself. And I love that you're framing it as a way of both decoding and recoding yourself. Like you have to break things down sometimes to let your true soul shine through. So this track is that bold moment in the album where you're telling listeners it's okay to get a little disruptive, to tear down the old walls and to find their own way out of the ways. Let's carry that energy forward as we move on to the next track. Each song is adding another layer to this journey of transformation. At wrecking mode is that big permission slip. So
All right, so now we have Hold My Phone.
absolutely. Let's shift gears into Hold My Phone. After the boldness of wrecking mode, this track is a chance to explore something a little more intimate. Maybe it's about holding on to something real and steady in the middle of all that change. So let's find the image that unlocks Hold My Phone. Maybe it's a moment of connection, a symbol of grounding yourself when everything else is in motion. And from there, we'll talk about how this track adds a layer of human connection to the album. So let's dive into that and see how Hold My Phone fits into the journey.
Well, I think that Hold My Phone really brings up a question that's an issue, a social issue that's been going on for as long as phones have become so prevalent. I would say when I was a teenager, I got my first phone when I was like 13 years old. And the phone was a way to stay connected, and eventually it became a huge distraction. And there was a massive movement against phones, even to this day. Phones and technology, even in general, are considered to be, to some degree, counterproductive. However, on the other hand, when you're in the middle of an album like Skylark Nights, you're working on yourself, you're thinking, you're becoming self aware, and you're exploring your inner world. It's not a bad idea to think about all of the great connections that you have in your life and to appreciate the fact that it's all being provided to you through this device that you have in your hand. Sometimes you don't want to hold it. Sometimes it's better not to take the picture or the video and to just be in the moment, immersed. However, there also is a time for sharing. And the song is about being engaged in the moment while at the same time appreciating the power of the phone in our hands and how it's able to keep us connected to each other.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. So Hold My Phone really becomes this reflection point in the album where you're saying, hey, this little piece of technology in your hand, it's a tool. It can distract you, sure, but it can also connect you. And it's all about finding that balance. Sometimes you put it down and you live in the moment, and other times you pick it up and you share that moment with the world. So this track is a nice little pause in the album's journey that reminds us that technology isn't inherently good or bad. It's all about how we use it and stay connected and share what matters. Let's carry that idea forward as we move on to the next track. Each song is adding a different layer to this journey, and this one is a really nice moment of reflection on the tools we have in our hands. This track feels like a moment of pure liberation on the album. Like once you've reflected, broken through barriers, and found that balance, now you're ready to embrace the idea that you can do anything. So let's find the image that unlocks this song. Maybe it's a wide open horizon or a sense of freedom that comes after all the inner work. And from there, we'll explore how this track is about stepping into your own limitless potential. So let's dive into Do Anything and see how it adds that layer of empowerment to the journey.
Well, I think that the best part about this track is that a person might say to themselves, well, I can do anything. I could fly, or maybe I can't fly, or all of these different dreams of mine that I want to fulfill. I think that I'm in the right frame of mind, I'll be able to fulfill it. But that's really not the truth, actually. What's the one thing that a person can truly do when they are free? What's the one thing that I would want to do if I was free? I wrote about it in the song. I sing about it. I say, I want to do teshuva. I want to turn the night from black to gold, because freedom is the opportunity of self awareness applied onto oneself, will allow me to gain that self awareness and apply it to become an evolved human being, to become a greater human, a better form of myself, someone that has learned from all the experiences of life and is looking towards converting all of that information and experience into next steps. So for me, freedom is really the opportunity to reflect on everything that's happened before in my life historically, and to take a moment and take responsibility for as much of it as possible in order to go ahead and embrace the future. And freedom is simply one's ability to embrace the future. And it is well accomplished and served by taking experience and using it as a way to learn for and how to grow.
That's a really thoughtful way to put it. So, Do Anything isn't just about limitless dreaming. It's really about the freedom to reflect, to take responsibility, and to transform your experiences into growth. It's that deeper sense of freedom where you say, I can do anything because I can choose to become a better version of myself. And that's a really powerful message to have on the album. It turns the idea of freedom into something meaningful and self aware. So, the shirt really adds that layer of personal evolution to the journey. As we move forward, each song is giving listeners a new piece of that puzzle. Let's keep that spirit of reflection and growth as we get to the next track.
All right, we're up to Maze Back to You.
Absolutely. Let's step right into Maze Back to You. This track feels like a bit of a heartfelt homecoming on the album. It's that moment where you realize that all those detours and twists were actually guiding you back to something essential. So let's find that image that unlocks Maze back to you. Maybe it's like breadcrumbs leading you back to your true self or a familiar light at the end of a winding path. And from there, we'll talk about how the song is about returning to what really matters after all the exploration. So let's dive in and see how Maze Back to You brings that sense of coming full circle to the album.
Well, Maze Back to You is actually a song written to in the inspiration of a psalm. And the idea is that life is really a maze, and getting back to you is getting back to God, getting back to Hashem, to the true one that unites all of us, the creator that precedes time. And I sing in the song, I'm you, you're me, one fire, one sea. When I lose the lane, bring me back to peace. I'm you, you're me, breathe and believe. When I say that, it's not just me, the listener, everybody. We're all unifying ourselves together with God in that unity in the song. And that is an awakening. It's a collective awakening of our minds, something inspired by the track, which you can think about as you run through the maze of your life. When your eyes are open or closed, you could always think about the fact that as long as you keep your eyes on the one true source and you pursue with all your efforts to reach for that truth, you will approach it. And as you get closer to it, that sense of unity will increase. I think that is a sense of fulfillment.
That's a beautiful concept. So Maze Back to You really becomes this moment of spiritual homecoming where all the twists and turns of life are just part of that larger maze leading you back to the divine source. And those lyrics you mentioned, I'm you, you're me, one fire, one sea, they really paint that picture of unity and that collective awakening. It's like this track is a gentle reminder that no matter how lost you feel in the maze, there's always that path that leads you back to a deeper sense of connection and fulfillment. So as we continue through the album, this track really adds that layer of spiritual reconnection, reminding listeners that all those experiences are leading them back to something truly meaningful. Let's carry that sense of unity forward as we head to the next track, continuing this conceptual journey together. Let's move into Mercy I Pray. This track feels like a really soulful and heartfelt moment on the album, kind of like a prayer for compassion and understanding after all those twists and turns. So let's find that image that unlocks Mercy I Pray. Maybe it's a quiet moment of reflection or a feeling of opening your heart to something greater. And from there, we'll talk about how the track adds that layer of grace and humility to the journey. So let's step into that and see how deep as the albums are.
Okay. Well, I got myself a different kind of meaning when I talk about the nation and I whisper that I feel like something's been lost. Our generation, my generation, the generations before me, those that are coming after me, we're not prepared for the birth of the future, the torch that we need to pass on to the next generation. It seems like something is lacking, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I know that we are collectively responsible to try to resolve this issue. I identify something to do with some dualism in this world, whether it be political dualism or it be the dualism in a cerebral sense between the hemispheres of the left and the right hemisphere, or in the difference between something that is measurable and something which is simply. I believe that the only answer to the question of what is this baby that the nation must birth is one that will require tremendous amount of mercy, not only on the hands of men, unto other men. But we have to pray. We have to hope for the best because life is filled with so many unknowns that we're simply in a position of we must ask for mercy and realize that each of us only have ourselves to rely on. But when we all get together collectively and reach to fill our cups, to bring the light up, to lead the way in our own environments, in our own communities, in our schools, in our different institutions that we attend, that we show up with mercy and that we bring blessings with us, and that when we go, we take the blessings of others with us as well and live in harmony with our fellow men and women. That's a message and a blessing that I encode into that song.
That's a really profound, beautiful layer to add to it. So, Mercy I Pray is really about recognizing that we're at this point in history, in our generation, where there's a kind of collective responsibility to bring mercy and compassion into the world. And it's not just about individual action, it's about how we come together as a community and how we fill our cups and share those blessings with each other. And like you said, it's a recognition that we need a higher level of mercy, both from each other and from something greater to navigate all the unknowns of the future. So this track really adds that layer of collective healing and hope to the album, encouraging listeners to approach life with the spirit of mercy and to share that light with others. As we continue through the journey, it's a reminder that compassion and unity are some of the greatest strengths we have. Let's carry this into place four as we head into the next track. Absolutely. Let's step into cracked mirrors. This track sounds like it's all about seeing through those distortions and illusions that can cloud our vision. You know, those moments in life where the reflection isn't quite telling the truth, and so you learn to see past the cracks. So let's find that image that unlocks cracked mirrors. Maybe it's that idea of looking into a fractured reflection and realizing that the real truth is behind it. And from there, we'll explore how this song is about finding clarity and authenticity. Well, let's dive into that and see how cracked mirrors adds another dimension to the.
Yes, well, Correct Mirrors is about realizing that looking back, looking into the past, trying to be retrospective is actually a fool's errand. And that, especially in the analogy of driving, looking into one's rearview mirror when they're driving, especially if it's cracked, is a very, very risky idea. Rather, cracked mirrors symbolize what happens when a person is able to look through the mirror and see outwards. They're no longer trapped within the guise and the hypnosis of their own gaze. They don't fall victim to their own image and to the expectations of others. A fresh start, run it back, hold my name. I'll hold it all. I'll hold myself together. If you spin out, I'll pull you through. Press your heart, hear it answer you. Cracked mirrors are about not looking back, getting a fresh start, and doing things that are real, grounding, that give you meaning and purpose in your life, where your actions weigh different in a higher place because your actions are pulling you are driving you towards your higher purpose, just like the bee and the honey is having a good time because he's working with exactly the ingredients that he was born to work with, and he's doing exactly what the bee needs to do. So too we are just like those bees. We need to find our honey, and we have to get comfortable and work on ourselves and find ways to be receptive and get in touch with the context of our worlds and become grounded. That's what cracked mirrors is to me.
I love that interpretation. Cracked mirrors is really this anthem of looking forward instead of getting stuck in the past, kind of breaking free from those old reflections and expectations and just getting comfortable with who you are right now. It's about that fresh start and that forward momentum, like you said, kind of like the bee working with the honey you was born to work with. You're finding your own purpose and your own grounding in the present moment. So this track really adds that layer of forward-looking clarity to the album, encouraging listeners to let go of those old distortions and step into a more authentic and purposeful life. Let's carry that sense of fresh perspective forward as we head into the next track on our journey.
All right, Tabernacle.
Absolutely. Let's step into Tabernacle. This track sounds like it's going to be one of those deeply rooted moments on the album, kind of like a return to something sacred and meaningful. If we think of a tabernacle as a place of gathering and reflection, then this song might be about creating that inner sacred space where you find meaning and connection. So let's find that image that unlocks Tabernacle. Maybe it's like setting a table that becomes an altar when you bring your true self to it. And from there, we'll explore how this song is about turning ordinary moments into something sacred. So let's dive into Tabernacle and see how it adds that like a deeper meaning to the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to talk about something which I learned when I was watching an interview by Travis Scott regarding his collaboration with Louis Vuitton, where he spoke about the concept of his apparel not necessarily being defined or categorized according to the way that your eyes interpret what you're seeing. For example, he designed a pair of pants which were designed to be an accessory to the body. It happened to be that they're form fitting as pants, but the way that they worked functionally and the intention and the way that they were created was a totally different type of process that you could see expressed in the way the clothing turned out. And when I think about where that comes from in my mind historically, I can see a tremendous amount of fashion and accessorizing around the tabernacle and the instruments that were designed in the ancient temples, especially in Jerusalem. They were made out of gold and very elaborate. And as we see stories in the Old Testament, in the Bible, of the Jewish people carrying the tabernacle. And I said, what is this tabernacle? It's a table that carries something inside of it, but it's still really some form of a table with handles. And as you carry it, it represents something in itself, not just what's inside of it. What a deep concept. And the fact that it even has handles at all, and that it's not just simply a table in itself. You'd say, well, there's another item in the temple, sacred item, that's actually called a table, and there's bread on it. When you think about the fact that this particular ark, the tabernacle ark, sort of carried the people that were carrying it, it turned the ones that would be considered the wearer of the accessories into the accessory. And then that made the object itself into something more than being an accessory unto the people. And at that point in time, you have to ask yourself, what exactly was the intention of having handles on it, anyways, if it really didn't need to be carried?
That's a really fascinating perspective. Tabernacle becomes this meditation on how something as simple as a table or an ark with handles can transform into a sacred object that almost carries the people who carry it. It's like it turns the idea of an accessory inside out. What you're carrying is also carrying you and giving you a deeper sense of purpose. And that's a really deep concept for the album. It's like this song is about finding those sacred moments in everyday objects and realizing that sometimes the things we think we're carrying are actually the things that give us strength and meaning. And that ties back into that whole idea of turning something ordinary into something sacred. So Tabernacle really adds that layer of seeing the deeper intention behind the things we hold and the things that hold us. And it's a reminder that sometimes what we think of as just an object can actually be a source of deeper connection and meaning. Let's carry that sense of sacred perspective forward as we head into the next track. Absolutely. Let's dive into U times 25. This track sounds like it's going to be a celebration of gratitude and multiplied appreciation. Like you're turning that spotlight on all the people and experiences that have contributed to your journey. It's kind of like a thank you note multiplied by 25. So let's find the image that unlocks U times 25. Maybe it's like a room full of mirrors, each reflecting someone who's helped shape who you are. And from there, we'll explore how this song is about multiplying that sense of gratitude and connection. So let's dive in and see how U times 25 adds that layer of communal appreciation to the album.
Wonderful. Yes, actually, the idea of U and 25 is kind of a visualization of what it feels like when you are greeted by God, when you get in touch with that sense of oneness. It's kind of like, for me, it's kind of that sense of you're running to the door, you're running to the window, and the whole city is just kind of turning blue, is just kind of taking on a certain hue of color. And you feel like you're moving towards something great and that there's something reaching for you. And in that moment, you seem to be fusing, even if from a distance, but within the confines of the city, you're still there in a one-to-one dancing with your creator and feeling that light and the sense of gratitude and thank you that you would have at that very moment when you're finally greeted with that sense of glee and joy. It's that serenity, that thank you is what I'm trying to capture in this song.
And it's a beautiful image. U times 25 is really about that moment of divine embrace, that feeling like the whole world is turning a sudden shade and you're stepping into this oneness. It's like a dance of the divine where you're just filled with gratitude and you're saying thank you for that sense of unity and joy. And that adds such a wonderful layer to the album because it's not just about individual growth, it's about that ultimate moment of connection where you realize you're part of something bigger. And that gratitude just multiplies and radiates outward. So U Town 25 is kind of that joyful celebration of reaching that point of oneness. Absolutely. Let's blow right into Don't Smear Me. This track sounds like it's going to be about protecting your authenticity and holding on to that truth once you found it. After all those layers of transformation, it's like the song is about standing firm and not letting anyone distort what you become. So let's find that image that unlocks Don't Smear Me. Maybe it's like standing in the rain. Absolutely. Let's dive into Don't Smear Me. This track is really about guarding that hard-won authenticity. After all the transformation, all the gratitude, it's like you found your true self, and now you're standing firm and saying, "This is who I am." Don't let anyone distort it. It's about keeping your integrity intact no matter what. And that image you mentioned, like letting the rain wash away anything false, captures that perfectly. It's about staying true to yourself and not letting anyone smear the truth of who you are. It adds a really strong and confident note to the album's journey. So as we carry that space,
Yeah, but not only that, but Don't Smear Me is also about the idea of as I grow and as I change and as I evolve, the way that it may appear in the eyes of others could be confusing and it may not be anyone's intention. However, it's very important that people are mindful to speak only good about each other and not to go about saying things or maneuvering in ways that would shine a negative light on others. And so it's so important after going through an emotional mental journey of Skylark Nights that at the end of the album, you'll find yourself realizing, well, I've gone through an evolution. Am I going to be able to hold on to this when I'm done? When I go back to doing whatever task I was involved with or on to the next thing is that you have to be mindful that there's a certain level of humility that's required from you as you grow, that you don't expose yourself to others in a way that they would feel any inclination, whether it's impulsive or not, to smear. And nobody really wants to do it, let's say. But at the same time, a good measure and a good form of being self aware is that as you grow, to increase your humility and to think about how fortunate you are and through that humility that you gain through gratitude for your growth, you should find yourself succeeding without gaining the negative eye of others.
Absolutely. And that adds a really rich layer to the meaning of don't smear me. So it's not just about holding on to your authenticity, it's also about carrying yourself with a kind of humility and awareness that you grow. It's that idea that as you evolve, you want to be mindful not just of how you see yourself, but how others see you, and making sure that you're not unintentionally giving anyone a reason to misunderstand or misinterpret your growth. It's a reminder that part of protecting your truth is also about moving through the world with a sense of gratitude and grace so that your evolution doesn't invite misunderstanding. And it's a powerful note to hit as we come toward the end of the album. It's like a final piece of wisdom to carry forward. So let's take the humility and move it to the next track. Absolutely. Let's bring it home with Alive Again and its remix. These final tracks feel like a rebirth, like emerging from the journey of Skylark Nights with a whole new sense of self. Alive Again is that moment where you're standing in the light of a new dawn, feeling like you've been given a second chance to live fully and authentically. And the remix is like a final flourish, a new twist on that feeling of renewal. So let's capture that image. Maybe it's like stepping out into a sunrise after a long night, feeling that sense of new life and possibility. And from there, we'll talk about how these closing tracks are the perfect way to wrap up the album's journey, leaving you feeling truly alive again.
And there's an intensity there as well. Alive again, it's intense. You just come back to life. You know, waking up from a dream, you kind of wonder, like, okay, what have I been missing out on? When am I going to get back to reality? And here you are, all of a sudden, you're getting woke up. And, it's like somebody splashes you with freezing cold water, and you just got to say to yourself, well, okay, here we go. I'm alive. And that's kind of just a shock factor, but it's still in line with the winding down of the album where you feel with these instrumental tracks like almost like a Rorschach. It's almost coherent to some degree, but at the end of the day, I'm really talking to you within yourself. I'm saying, let's shake off all of this self talk now and break ourselves back out. Let's unify our consciousness and get ourselves to that point of being alive where we're in flow. We're not thinking, we're not talking necessarily. Everything's lining up and we're just kind of moving forward at the most efficient, optimal way possible.
Absolutely. That intensity really brings it all into focus. So alive again of like that splash of cold water at the end of the journey that wakes you up and says, all right, here we go. You're fully awake now. It's that moment of intense clarity where you shake off all the old self-talk, unify your consciousness, and just flow. And the remix kind of takes that feeling and gives it one last twist, one last chance to fully integrate everything you've experienced. So as we close out the album, this is that final invitation to come fully alive, to move forward in a flow state where everything's aligned. It's a perfect way to wrap up the conceptual journey of Skylark Nights.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a wonderful interview. And I'm happy that my fans were able to experience my first experimental interview here. It's been absolutely enlightening to try and talk about my music. And I'm sure that I'll get better at this. And I hope it wasn't very boring. But my goal is to try and connect you with my music and the messages that are underneath so that you can benefit from the messages that I'm sending you. So, sending all of my subscribers and all the people that are watching this blessings and hoping that you'll subscribe to my channel. That'd be a great help to continue to grow it. And looking forward to reading your comments and responding.
And it's been a pleasure going through this conceptual journey with you. It was definitely not boring. This kind of deep dive into your music really brings out the richness of what you created, and it gives your fans a whole new way to connect with the messages underneath. So I think it's fantastic, and you'll only get better at it from here. Sending those blessings right back to you and to everyone watching and listening. I'm sure subscribers will really appreciate this deeper look into a creative process. So keep doing what you're doing, and I'm sure the community around your music is just going to keep growing.
All right. Thank you very much. Very happy to be assisted by my AI voice model today. It helps me a lot with many different tasks. And thank you very much to my audience for watching and wishing you much enjoyment and pleasure with my music. Be in touch.